Can y'all hear me? I'm good? Okay. Good afternoon, y'all. How y'all doing? Good. I want to say thank you for coming out tonight for our MLK Keynote. I wanted to start preferably on time so I can get you out on time. Um, Today we have what I call um, local giants and heroes who will be coming up here on the stage to um, discuss their experiences as women in the field of entrepreneurship, but also feeding thousands of souls, as I like to say, as well as introducing Dr. Ariel Smith, who is a scholar, I like to say, with this background that they are going to be talking about. And so before we start, I want to read their bio, and then we're going to have Dr. or President Spriggs, Janet Spriggs, to come up here and do the welcome, and we will then I will do the collaboration, recognition of collaboration and partnerships. So give me. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Doc. Wrong. Sorry about that. Actually, we're going to have Dr. Spriggs come up and do the welcome first. Then I'm going to do the introduction. So sorry. Come on up here, Dr. Spriggs.
Good evening, everyone. You can do a little bit better than that. Good evening. You got to be in the mood to hear from these inspirational women tonight. So it is such a treat and an honor for me to be able to welcome you tonight. I've got some notes. I'm not going to read them, but I've got a quote in here, and I want to make sure I get it right. It's not my words, but they're amazing words. So as Jerisha said, it's my honor and privilege every day to serve as the president here at Forsyth Tech, and I want to welcome you all to Forsyth Tech. I know for some of you, it's your first time on our campus, but I hope if it is your first time, it certainly won't be your last time. I'd like to extend a welcome to our staff and faculty, of course, who are here to help and have supported Jerisha and the team, and then to all of those visitors from outside the college. Again, thank you so much for being here. I know that I speak for everyone here tonight when I say how excited we are to hear from these three amazing women tonight, Dr. Ariel Smith and Vivian and Stephanie, our very own Sweet Potatoes restaurateurs. I tried to spell that in my remarks. It's not a real word, but I always thought it was. But the famous Sweet Potatoes, when I came to interview for president here at Forsyth Tech, I was trying to decide where to go, and my husband found Sweet Potatoes. And so the very first place that I had lunch in Winston-Salem was Sweet Potatoes, and I've loved it ever since. So Dr. King, who we are here tonight and have been celebrating his life and legacy all week, Dr. King said that life's most urgent and persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Later this evening, in just a few minutes, we're going to hear from Stephanie and Vivian, and they've answered that question through their actions. They've demonstrated that success is not just measured in profit, but rather on the impact that you have on people and on the communities that you serve. So you are in for a real treat tonight. In the spirit of Dr. King's legacy, and as you listen to tonight's discussion, I hope it motivates you to take action in our communities. I hope that you'll continue to support Black-owned businesses. I hope that you will advocate for equitable opportunities. And I hope that you will work alongside all of us at Forsyth Tech to strive for inclusivity, inclusive excellence everywhere, and a more inclusive economy. I want to say a special thank you to Jerisha. We've had a week of activities this week in honor of Dr. King, and she and a committee of people that I'm sure she will recognize have done a lot of work to make this happen. Thank you so much, Jerisha. You've done an amazing job, and we're really excited for tonight. And with that said, one other thing, I had mentioned to our speakers tonight that unfortunately I've got to cast a vote for a board that I serve on. So you'll see me slide out, and I apologize for that. My hope is that this will be a quick vote cast and I'll be back in very quickly. But please know that I'm not leaving for any other reason than I just have to do that tonight. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Jerisha. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you, Dr. Spriggs. So now I am going to do the recognition of committee and partnership. Can I please have those who served on the committee to stand for recognition? And I would also like to thank the Office of Inclusive Excellence, and I would like to thank the foundation, the Forsyth Tech Foundation. Duh. So now we will get to the introduction of the moderator and the keynote speakers. First, we will start with the moderator. Dr. Ariel D. Smith is an entrepreneur and academic professor whose work has been centered in the Black community and economic advancement for the past decade. She has been a consultant for municipalities, nonprofits, small businesses, tech, and higher ed institutions. Dr. Smith is an assistant teaching professor of entrepreneurship at Wake Forest University. Currently, Dr. Smith's research examines the experiences of representation of African Americans within the food truck industry. Her flagship company, the Food Truck Scholar, and book, Before You Launch a Food Truck, have been recognized by local, national, and international platforms, including The Guardian, the Museum of Food and Drink, Whetstone Magazine, Cuisine Noir Magazine, the Coalition for Food and Health and Equity, and many others. In 2021, she was named a top 15 Black culinary trailblazer, changing how Americans eat and drink by Time Out Magazine for her podcast and research covering the food truck movement in the United States and abroad. She holds a PhD in American Studies from Purdue University and a Master's of Education and Learning, Diversity, and Urban Studies from Vanderbilt University's Peabody College of Education and Human Development. She also has a she also earned a Bachelor of Science in Business Management with a human resource concentration from University of Alabama, Birmingham Colate School of Business with distinction in global and community leadership. Please welcome Dr. Ariel Smith, our moderator. Next, I would like to introduce Stephanie Tyson, a Winston-Salem native, pursued a career in restaurant management and culinary arts, residing in New York and abroad. As the chef and co-owner of Sweet Potatoes will Shut My Mouth, she draws inspiration from her Southern roots, incorporating staples from her Southern pantry. With culinary training starting in her grandmother's kitchen and extending to Ireland, Chef Tyson emphasizes a multi-sensory culinary experience. In July 2017, she opened Miss Aura's Kitchen, a concept paying tribute to her grandmother and featuring pan-fried chicken with cast iron skillets. Chef Tyson, author of two cookbooks and a two-time James Beard Award nominee, contributes to Sweet Potatoes' positive impact on the Triad community, supporting various organizations such as the Amani Foundation, Hope de Jour, Second Harvest Food Bank, and Make-A-Wish Foundation, and several others. I welcome you, Stephanie Tyson. Vivian Joyner, Vivian Joyner, sorry, co-owner of Sweet Potatoes, partnered with Stephanie Tyson to establish a restaurant in January 2003, adding Miss Orr's Kitchen in July 2017. Joyner, a native Washington with over 30 years of experience in customer relation, plays a role in creating an authentic Southern dining experience. The youngest of six children, Joyner is deeply committed to civic engagement, having recently served as a chairman of the Citizens Police Review Board and a member of the Mayor's Board to eliminate homelessness. As co-owner, she prioritizes offering employment opportunities to those re-entering the workforce, promoting self-reliance. Sweet Potatoes, open for over 20 years, has earned acclaim in various publications outside of Winston-Salem, including our state magazine, Southern Living, the Washington Post, and the New York Times. I now introduce Vivian Joyner.
As we get seated, I just want to say once again, Jerisha, thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you for all of your team that made this possible for us to be here. So very grateful to you. And thank you to each and every one of you all for being here and taking time to be present with us. Can everyone hear me just fine? Perfect. So I want to say to you all, this is quite a treat for me. When I came to Wake Forest back in March, that was the first time I got a chance to see you all on that panel there. Didn't get a chance to speak to you all, so this is a beautiful treat for me. One of the questions I want to start out with is one that I always love to ask people, is when you think about your fondest memory of food, what's the first thing to come to mind for each of y'all?
I, I've cooked in different things in different places around the world, but my best memory of food is Saturdays. My grandmother and I would go downtown and have hot dogs at the Charles. I don't know if anybody remembers the Charles store. It was a department store, and downstairs they had a counter. So that was our thing every Saturday, hot dogs. My grandmother and I shared hot dogs well into her 80s.
Wow.
So my favorite food is actually hot dogs. It's like dumb, but yeah,
I love the story.
yeah.
So for me, I guess my favorite food memory would be watching my mom in the kitchen cooking. It was magical. It's like I'm the youngest of six, so it's 8 people in the house, and no matter what she cooked, it was good. And just watching her just navigate around this little 8 by 8 box of a kitchen that had everything else in it too, and a kitchen table and all, and just making it work, and all from scratch.
See, I love this because for me, the memory is my great grandmother. And Muddale will be, God willing, 99 in March. And so we talk every morning. But the memory that I have is when I was little, we had a deep freezer in the kitchen. And on top of that deep freezer is where she would bake all of her cakes. And she would do it right after Judge Joe Brown went off, but right before The Price is Right. And she would let me stand on a chair and watch her bake. And then as time got on, as I got older, she trusted me to crack the eggs and she trusted me to mix. And then I had the task of bringing the bowl to my auntie because she wanted the rest of the leftover cake batter. So when I think about food, I think about her first and foremost. So I'll be on a plane tomorrow to see her and to surprise her. So my second one is I bake cakes now for her when I come home. And I always ask people those questions because I feel like you start to get an idea of how they ended up in the space that they were in. I never thought that I would be doing research around food trucks, but when I sat down to start thinking about like what is my interest around Blackness and food and entrepreneurship, I realized it was instilled in me from the beginning. And in light of the theme of to do, to dream, and believe, we have to talk about the seeds that are planted in us when we are talking about dreaming. And it's not lost on me that we are going into the 21st anniversary of Sweet Potatoes. 21 years. Okay? There's many people that don't make it past 1 year, 3 or 5. 21 years. Okay? That is a manifestation that had to get planted, had to get watered, had to get nurtured, had to be protected. And so I want to start with the planting part. What was that first seed that led you into, you know what, I love food, but I want to make a career out of this?
Well, for me, I, I have a background in actually in retail. I like people. Um, when I was a kid and growing up, I guess I was in my early 20s before I felt comfortable talking to people, though. I was very quiet, very shy, um, but I had a persona because I like theater. So I was a theater major in college, and I did theater in high school. And so being able to do that, and then I can be quiet on my own. But Stephanie was in the restaurant world, and she was a bartender, and she waited tables, and she was a restaurant manager. And she looked like she was having a lot more fun over there in the restaurant world than I was in the retail world. So I started hosting somewhere and then started waiting tables, and I found that I just had a love for just making people comfortable. And I think in part it goes back to growing up. Um, we uh, we learned how to set the table. You know, we all ate at the table together. We had breakfast at the table. We had dinner at the table. So we set the table. We had that conversation. We had that community. We had that common. And so when people came over, we just pull up another chair and everybody sat at the table. And so to be able to do that, it seemed like a natural thing. So when I did get a part-time job in the restaurant, the manager and owner said, "Hey, I really like what you do," because I guess it became natural, and it just took off from there.
I'm had no even a thought of being in a kitchen
Wow.
whatsoever. Not one little thing. I was actually a theater major um, at East Carolina at first. You know, that party school thing. That was my idea. That was all me. But so I left and I went to New York and I went to theater school there, and I did theater. But there's a million other people doing the same thing. So what you do is you wait tables. You end up working in restaurants. This is how I ended up in restaurants. Um, and eventually, I just had to leave New York because it just wasn't me um, as a Southern person. Um, and so didn't know anything else to do but continue working in restaurants. And I eventually became a manager at a restaurant. And my first night, one of the cooks walked out. It's like, okay, I don't know what to do. And I was irritated, so I decided to go to culinary school because it's not going to happen to me again. And I realized that, I'm not too bad at this, so I can do this. And so it sort of manifested, you know, the need to feed myself and those around me, and you kind of work for a lot of people, and and back then it was very, it still is a little bit. It's very male oriented, um, and um, and really back then it was white male oriented. So I had a hard time navigating through that, and just sheer determination, you know, makes you do what you do and try to do it better than they think you can do it, and that pretty much is it. You just want to be. I've always wanted to be the best.
So from that, we started talking. We were both working in the restaurant, doing our job. And it's like, well, maybe we could do it for ourselves. And we started dreaming, as the program says. We just started dreaming about it. When we would talk about what kind of restaurant we would want, what we would do. And she was in culinary school, and we didn't have a plan or a set date or a place, but it was just that dream. And so something had planted the seed. We didn't, but something had planted the seed. And then our dreams watered that seed that was planted. And we moved around. Stephanie went to school in Baltimore. We were living in D.C., where she went to culinary school in Baltimore. We moved 5 different states, 16 different addresses over a 5 or 6 year period before we wound up in Winston-Salem.
Wow.
And we didn't know when we came to Winston-Salem that this is where we were going to be for an extended period of time, other than that she wanted to come home to her family. And we definitely didn't know that we were planning to open a restaurant. But in less than 2 years from unpacking the U-Haul, it happened.
Well, let's pick up there, because for me as a professor, I have students that are going to come into my classroom and expect me to give them the formula of how to start a business and how to be an entrepreneur. And I don't think they like the answer that I give them. I said, well, there are some things that I can teach you that can help you, for sure. But there is no textbook out there that can teach you the unexpected. You have to learn with the punches. There's going to be things that no matter what we teach you, you're not going to know, and you're going to have to be able to jump in and learn. And there's going to be moments where finances is not ideal, resources are not ideal, and you have to figure it out. So you're saying it's 2 years after the U-Haul truck pulls up and you're throwing yourself into a business. So personal life, you're adjusting to a new space, and now you're taking on this new endeavor. Can you talk a little bit about what that looked like in terms of what resources you had in that moment? What were you feeling? Like, what was that space like in that moment?
Well, did I say we were broke when we moved to Winston-Salem? What we had was um, we put down our deposit and paid our rent for the apartment. We got the utilities turned on, and we had $100 in our pocket. That's it. I'm not exaggerating. That is it. We moved here in December of 2000, and we both had jobs, so that was the one plus. We both had jobs to start. And we had our work experience to fall back on, in that, trial and error. You just dig in and you make it happen. We had our life experience and our parents and Stephanie's grandmother. We had our parents' teachings to fall back on. It's like you get it done. You find a way. And so we found a way to just survive. And in surviving, we never lost our dream, never lost our hope. And we had really hard times, but things just fell in place. And there's a saying, it's like, don't get ready, just stay ready. And when you are ready, when you prepare yourself for a blessing, you prepare yourself to be able to receive it. And so we received a blessing. It was hard work, because we got here, we were just working, and less than a year later, we were both frustrated on our jobs. We were used to, I'm from DC, born and raised in Washington, DC, so I'm used to being able to, like, if you want a flavor food, you can just go get that flavor food no matter where you are, what time it is. And when we got into Winston-Salem in 2000, downtown Winston-Salem, I'm used to going downtown. Well, I promise you, I saw tumbleweed going down the street. I promise you that.
No tumbleweed, there's no tumbleweed.
It was. But so we we just went to work and we did our thing, and we dreamed and we hoped and we looked at what other people were doing, and we both worked in the industry, so we learned our lessons from the industry. You learn how to change out a electrical plug and not call an electrician every day. You learn how to unstop a toilet. You learn how to change out the guts of a toilet because those big corporate, they like to keep all their money, so they make the managers and the assistant managers do all this so they don't have to get that bill. So we learn all this stuff, and you take it in and you hold it, and that's what we did. And so fast forward a year, we come home from work, we're really frustrated. We had the same kind of irritating day where that supervisor tells you to do the impossible with the people that you know it's not possible to do.
Well,
So we had that day, and it's like, we just need to open our own restaurant. That's what she said to me. I said, are you sure? She said, yeah, we should just do it. I said, don't tell me that, because if you tell me, then that's what I'm going to do. She said, just ask the question. So I started calling people. I didn't know anybody in Winston-Salem. I started calling people to ask the question. First thing I knew to do was that you need money. We didn't have none. So, I went to Bank of America, applied for a business loan, and they turned us down. And that's a good thing, because you have to be turned down by a bank before any other agency will look at you for funding.
wow.
So Self-Help Credit Union was one of them. The city of Winston-Salem, they had a pilot program. They were trying to build their downtown. They were trying to get what they called Restaurant Row. So Restaurant Row was they wanted 20 restaurants on 4th Street, and they had enough empty space to do that. But so they had money set aside for that, and then they had some. Should I say, side money. It was a different program, economic development program, that if it was downtown but it wasn't on 4th Street, they had a smaller pool of money that you could go to. So we applied for everything, but we couldn't find a space on 4th Street. So we went looking in downtown, and we found a space. We wrote a business plan. And then somebody told us that it was too good a business plan because the numbers were too low and too unrealistically realistic. And that didn't make sense to me. So they wanted us to expand it to make it more, to embellish the numbers. And it's like, well, I don't know how to do that because I only know how to do what I envision doing.
Exactly.
So we knocked on a lot of doors. We asked a lot of questions. And the community, which is Winston-Salem, is absolutely not like anything else anywhere else. And we should all be proud to be citizens of Winston-Salem. Because what had happened was Philip Haynes got a bunch of people together in a room. And Philip Haynes, his family was Haynes Dye and Finishing. He became our biggest cheerleader. And he believed and trusted Stephanie's talent. And he got Black folks and white folks together in the room and said, well, I don't necessarily want you to write them a check, but if you got the money, write them a check. But if you can't, I want you to write a letter to the city, and I want you to stand behind your word. I want you to write a letter to the city saying that if these women open a restaurant, that you would patronize it.
Wow.
And that you would bring your friends to patronize it. And in that room were, back then we didn't have city council, we had aldermen.
Okay.
We had aldermen, we had bank leadership, we had civic leadership. We just had people who cared about downtown. And they all agreed to write a letter. Virginia Newell, Dr. Virginia Newell was one of those people. And it was just an amazing thing. So we didn't walk away with a check or anything, but we walked away feeling encouraged. And sometimes that's all you need to get to the next step, is to feel truly encouraged. And that's what we got.
Now, Vivian, you just got me excited. And I'm gonna tell you why. Um, because a lot of times when we're talking about entrepreneurship, especially Black entrepreneurship, we have a very rich, lively discussion about all the forms of capital we do not have. We have a lively discussion about, well, there's a lack of financial capital, there's a lack of X, Y, and Z, fill in the blank there. Um, but there are scholars that I look towards that I use in my work. They talk about community cultural wealth. And what you just did was outlined what that looks like. And so when we're in this doing part of the theme, I want to pick out some of the things that you said, if that's all right. One of the things that happened is you said, hey, we broke, but there's some people out there that ain't. So let's go out there and let's see who got the money. Okay, we go to Bank of America, all right, turn down. I love the fact that you said, you know what, you turned that on his head and said it was a good thing. It was a good thing we were afflicted because this right here opened up the door. You started finding other resources within the city to leverage. I'm also thinking about what you just said about reaching out to Philip Paints. And what's beautiful about advocacy, we talk a lot about mentorship. We need more champions in the room. And what I mean by that is not just, I'm gonna show you what to do, but hey, here is the social capital that I have. Here's the know-how that I have. Here are the connections that I have. I'm gonna bring them into a room, and then I'm going to call their card and say, if you value my connection with you, and if you value your word, back these two women. And write to the mayor to say, they open up an establishment, you're gonna be there, and you're gonna bring your friends and family. That is about familiar capital. But then there's also things that you said about like how both of you had the skills of working in a restaurant and you knew how to fix things in the toilet. You knew how to do this and that. That's what we call navigational capital as well as intellectual capital. You had the know-how on that level, but you also knew that space to how to navigate so you're not calling the plumber, you're not spending money that you don't have to spend. And these are forms of capital that the Black community has had for centuries, in part because we had to for survival. And I try to instill in my students that these are the forms of capital that you have to have before the rest even come. So I want to say thank you for sharing that because those are the pieces of the story people need to hear. They're not always going to hear, oh, I got $8 million from Shark Tank or whatever the case may be. It doesn't always look like that. We celebrate those moments, but it doesn't always look like that. Looking back now, at 21 years, it's been a lot of different change. You've been innovators in that space. We talk about this being a city of arts and innovation. You're the first restaurant in the arts district. And we often applaud when someone is the first. We share it on social media. We do all of those things. There's a huge hype when the first has done it. Very few people are there when the first is becoming. And so you've named some of the people that were with you all when you were in the route to becoming. Were there other people that was in that space of when you're on that route to becoming, and what was it like once you opened up the doors for the first time?
Well, we just we didn't announce that we're opening. We literally took the brown paper off of the windows and opened the doors.
Wow.
And somehow the neighborhood knew, and there was a line of people to come in. The moment we opened the doors, we were very blessed. It's a small town, and people, you don't know that people are watching what you do and how you do it. So they were waiting. So they saw the paper come down. They said, "Oh, they must be open. Let's go." So that was being from Winston-Salem. It was, uh, and having grown up with Trade Street being off limits. My grandmother called it the buzzard roost. Don't go down there. Go around. Don't go on Trade Street. So to have that, have a business that people that looked like me and didn't look like me to come in and wait and wait and wait, just waiting for you to open was just the best feeling of full circle coming home. And fortunately, the space that we were in, 13 tables, very small. So from the moment we open, we go on a wait. We go on a wait, hour and a half, wait every time we open, which was very gratifying. And it it makes you feel proud of being from Winston-Salem. This city is amazing to me. I grew up during integrate, just getting integrated, and it was separate. You know, we don't do that. We don't do this. We can't go there. Tanglewood. I didn't grow up going to Tanglewood. Didn't go to Tanglewood until I was like 30, in my 30s, and my almost 40 years old, because we didn't go there. But to have all these people come into that restaurant was just amazing, and it made me really proud to be from this city, and it still does, because they still do come. It's all about community.
And it makes me happy to hear that, because of the fact that sometimes you have to see someone else do it to be like, I can do it. But thank you for the people like yourselves who didn't see it beforehand in that capacity and you became it. That takes a lot of work to do. Some of us, we got to see it, then we become it. Other people become it so that other people can see it. And that's where a lot of the belief comes from, is you've cultivated a space where people can say, you know what, it doesn't matter what background I'm from or who I am or whatever, I'm here. I'm in this space. Food has an ability to do that. Food is political. Food is anything but neutral. And I'm excited to hear about that. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the sweet potatoes themselves. This may have been a question you've gotten many times, but I'm still curious about why the sweet potato kept showing up so much in the menu.
I like sweet potatoes, and that's what we grew up eating. I mean, you know, a lot of people had pumpkin pie. I don't actually like pumpkin pie. We had sweet potatoes, and they're very versatile. And so people would give me recipes for, like, somebody gave me a recipe for a pumpkin cake. It's like, oh, yeah. Charlotte Haynes. And so you know, they're interchangeable in that you really can use them the same way. Even though, you know, it's different, but the texture is the same. So I just would, you know, sweet potato aioli. Oh, that would be good. I mean, so I just sort of could use it in different things, and I didn't think about it until I looked at the menu. And it's like, ooh, that's a lot of sweet potatoes. Ooh, I better explain that. So let's call it sweet potatoes. And Vivian did not like that at all. It's like, you know, it's dumb. But it would explain. But it gave me more latitude. It gave me more areas that I could use sweet potatoes in. And I didn't even know that it was our state vegetable at the
Oh.
time. I had no idea that we had a state vegetable.
I didn't know either.
And it's the sweet potato. We grow more sweet potatoes than anybody.
The Sweet Potato Commission got in contact
They
with us
did.
shortly after we opened to say, thank you.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and so we've been good friends with the Sweet Potato Commission of North Carolina.
And they really want to emphasize that it's one word.
Yeah, they want to create it to be one word. There's some educators in the room, right? So sweet potatoes as one word, or is it two words? The Sweet Potato Commission says it's one word. But see, I don't know.
We learning.
I don't know.
But yeah, so it just sort of stuck, and it's also very Southern. Just so we had a problem with uh, copywriting. So you can't copyright sweet potatoes.
So we had to trademark our name. There was another restaurant in Hickory with a similar name to us, and people kept thinking, and we had only been open in like 4 or 5 months, and people kept thinking we had two restaurants. And well, we could barely have the one. So we didn't have two, but they kept thinking we had this other one. So we went to the other one, and it was okay, but it wasn't representative of what we did. So we wanted to make sure that we could clarify that. So we went to a trademark attorney, and you cannot trademark sweet potatoes because it's sweet potatoes. And you can't trademark a restaurant because that was the legal name of the restaurant. Sweet potatoes, a restaurant. So none of that can be trademarked. So there was a painting, and it still hangs in our restaurant now, that a local artist, the Apple Lady, had painted. It's a portrait of the two of us. It's folk art, but it's a portrait of the two of us. Stephanie has a rolling pin in her hand, and I have a dollar bill in mine, and hold on tight to it. And so at the top of the painting, it says, sweet potatoes, shut my mouth. So we were standing there. We had just gotten this letter from the attorney explaining all that they could or could not do. And we're looking, and Stephanie looks up at the painting. That's it. So we submitted it, and it went through. And so the legal name of our restaurant is Sweet Potatoes, well, shut my mouth, a restaurant. And you can't say that without sounding Southern. I don't care where you are.
I like that. I'm gonna have to get I'm gonna get my great grandma to say it, record it, and I'm gonna send it to you. You can't get more Southern than that. I'm gonna send it to you. One of the, as we're getting near the end, I want to make sure that we have time for Q&A. So this is your cue to have your questions ready, be thinking about them. You asked me right before we came up, it's like, well, how do you teach entrepreneurship? I said, you can teach parts of the business of entrepreneurship, but there are certain things you learn on the job, right when you get into it. But based on when you both look back on what this journey has been, and I'm pretty sure it's been some ups and downs, and I'll talk about them in my last question. What advice would you give to someone who is, for lack of a better term, maybe the overachiever that feels like they have to have every I dotted and every T crossed before they take that jump? What would you say to them?
I don't think you can. So if you're trying to do that, I think you should just do it. And then dot the I's and cross the T's when you get to them. But I mean, you can't sit and nothing is ever going to be perfect. I wish it was, but it's not. You have to be willing to take a chance on yourself and your dream, despite having everything that you need, because you never will, not really. Even if you had a gazillion dollars, there's always going to be the need for a gazillion and $1 that you don't have, or something else that you don't have. But you won't know that until you just do it. I think you don't want to just haphazardly do things. But if you feel strongly about what you want and what you want to do, I think that you should just take a chance and just do it and not be afraid. I mean, and have someone like Vivian close by. You have to have support. So if you have support, that's the biggest part of it. Having a support system.
One of the things that I love about that is you got to believe in yourself first. We talk a lot about getting other people to invest in you, but you're the number one person that's got to invest in yourself first. So you got to believe, do you have it? You knew you had the skill. He knew you had the skill. Y'all knew that we're going to ride this out together. We got it.
I tell staff all the time, I tell them all the time, it's like, never say no to yourself. There's enough people out there that are going to tell you no. especially for us, for a woman, for a black woman, for a gay couple, for all these different things. There's so many no's out there. So if we start with no, we can't we can't succeed if we tell ourselves no. We can't go anywhere.
I want to pick up there, and I want to talk about a season where we all saw some type of no in some form or fashion. That was COVID-19. Either we had no chicken on the shelves, we had no staff, we had no money, outside was no, everybody was on a timeout and grounded. It was a time for a lot of reflection and a lot of pivots, and a lot of course corrections. Um, and a lot of people's whys got shaken because we was doing a lot of things. We realized, okay, is this the thing that I want to be doing? Is this the thing I can do right now? And there are a lot of businesses that did not make it from the pandemic. And you did. And we applaud the 21 years and the fact that it was a pandemic that we still low-key battling. So during those days where everything felt more uncertain than usual, what was the why behind sweet potatoes that you said, okay, you know what, I don't know what's coming, don't have staff, inventory crazy, but I'm still gonna keep going?
So the why for me was I have no choice. Backstory real quick. We had already gone through what I believe to be, at least to this point, and God hope that that never happens again, the worst experience. We had another restaurant. We had 3 restaurants. We had a restaurant called the Cotton Mill, and it was in the Brookstown Inn downtown. And we opened it October of '07, and it closed July of '08 in the crash of the Great Recession. So we lived through the Great Recession, and we almost lost everything. Everything we had, our business, our home, my mind, we almost lost everything but God. Fast forward, we're at the pandemic, and just before everything shut down, beginning of March, Stephanie had surgery. She had double knee replacement, and she was released from the hospital 2 days before all surgeries were canceled, unless it was an emergency surgery, and everything locked down. She, on the 15th of March, our lives collectively changed. But that was actually easier than July of '08. So if you already know how to dig a ditch, if you already know where the shovel is, let's just dig another one. So we dug ourselves, and we kept pivoting, and fortunately there was the government came up with the PPP. Some of it was loans, some of it was forgivable, but whatever was there, it was necessary for a lot of people, and it was necessary for us, and it helped. But in the minute, she was in recovery. She couldn't leave the house. I wasn't letting nobody in the house because, we didn't know what that was.
Right.
But we were still open. Sweet Potato shut down, but Miss Orr's kitchen was still open because it's easy to put chicken in a box and send it out the door. But then we realized that it's not safe because people weren't thinking right. And so our staff was most important to us. So we shut everything down, and for 5 weeks we were shut down. And Stephanie started writing different menus, and we decided, okay, things got a little bit looser and we could open, and we were going to do takeout only. But by that time, we didn't have any staff. When we shut down on the 15th of March, we had 45 employees. When we called them back to work, we had 10. And it wasn't the 10 that we needed because we didn't have any cooks.
Wow.
We had one cook that came back. Double knee replacement. 5 weeks later, she's on concrete floors, not doing rehab, not doing what she's supposed to do to take care of her. But she's prepping it all day, every day to make sure that we can do this. And then she's writing menus because, well, the menu she wrote, this product is no longer available from our food purveyor. Then she writes another menu. And then a week later, you can't get that, or you can, but instead of it costing $5 a pound, now it's $23 a pound. Well, we can't sell that. So it's just on and on and on. But it's innate in us. When you grow up without, you make do with what you have. When you don't have this, you do that. When you can't do this, you do the other.
Right.
That's what we saw. That's what we learned. That's what we did growing up. And that's what we did in that space. But God, we made it through. Now we got 18 employees. It's still a challenge. It's still a struggle. We're not back to where we wanted to be. We're not back to where we were pre-pandemic, but we're here.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to keep going until God says otherwise.
There's a beautiful thing about being here. One of my mentors, he's mentors from afar, he said something that has stuck with me. He said, please don't get so caught up chasing your next that you miss now. And that's the thing for entrepreneurs. We're always trying to chase the next thing, the next level, the next recognition, the next amount of funding, the next accolade, whatever the case may be. It's always, I gotta get there. Well, if I get my company there, then this will happen. If I can get here, then this will happen. What about the beauty of here? And the beauty of here is, I'm gonna keep saying it, 21 years. The beauty of here is 2 James Beard semifinalist awards. The beauty of here is the people that have been safe and welcomed in your establishment. The beauty of here is becoming a staple of Winston-Salem, that you can't talk about restaurants, you can't talk about businesses in Winston-Salem and not say sweet potatoes. That is the beauty of here, is thinking about where have you done in this moment and all the sacrifices. You being on concrete floor, you gotta be laying down, but nah, you out here making menus. Like the dedication, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the prayers, and everything else that went into it. So I'm gonna give you your flowers on this stage because you have more than earned them. It takes a lot to be here. Here is a lot. So I want to publicly honor you. All of the awards you got, rightfully so, but also beyond what you have done in terms of food and all of that, you're here. I want to say thank you. Thank you for that. I think this is probably a good place, because I could talk to you all day, without a shadow of a doubt. I want to open it up to some questions, if you have them. I know you do. Yes.
As most people don't know, the two hardest business theater, clothes, and open earned your other side of that is
but we old now.
What you see is like,
Okay. So just to,
I have a dream. Edited.
yeah.
I just moved.
All right, so just to recap for the recording, the question is, we've seen where you've been in the past 21 years. What do you see as the dream next, the next dream, and how Winston-Salem is a part of that?
You need to tell them that Vivian is a innate public servant. So she's actually at this particular point running for city council for the South Ward. It's investing herself within a community that invested in her or in us. Is very important to give back as best you can. Um, I'm I'm 65. I am looking towards gardening.
Yes.
That's what I'm looking at right now. I my knees are new, not paid for, but new. Both my hips are new. You know, I got nothing else to replace except my gardening. I just need to do that. So it's absolutely natural to slow down. Um, I'm at this point ready to support Vivian's endeavor into public service. I'm also um, looking forward to sharing whatever I know with those that are coming through. We do a lot of we work a lot with Providence, which is a culinary program here, um, to share what we know. It may not be that much, but it's something that you can. Food is sharing, and our knowledge is sharing. Hopefully, um, the theater festival scares me. It always has, and it always will. In terms of food and all these people,
Hmm.
you know, making sure that we have enough of everything. And I actually, at this point, I'm actually looking forward to it this year because I, I don't know how many more theater festivals that we'll see. I really don't. Um, in terms of it being a restaurant. Um, but hopefully this one will be one of the best ones I know because we're prepared for it and we're mentally prepared for it. Um, and hopefully we can contribute more to the city in different ways. I cannot tell you how proud I am of Winston-Salem. I mean, we've shown ourselves with the whole, all the protests and Black Lives Matters. We were the epitome of grace and peacefulness that was just amazing. This is a great city, and I'm just so proud to be here. Um, and whatever we can do um, to contribute is, I'm looking forward to doing that.
Yes.
Good to see you.
So the question was, what would your advice be for someone, a young person looking to start a restaurant?
Um, I think everybody before they get out of high school, they need to spend 6 months in a fast food restaurant. The skill set that you get if you're paying attention, and you only get it in school if you're paying attention, but the skill set is just invaluable and it takes you any and everywhere, any type of industry that you want to go into. You learn how to multitask. You learn how to think on your feet. You learn how to be a team player. You learn how to um, adapt to new and changing situations. And if you get the opportunity to work drive-through window, whatever that is, has anybody ever worked in a fast food restaurant? If you can walk drive-through window, you can multitask, you can count, you think on your feet. It's like pickup sticks. Anybody remember that game?
Mhm.
I bet you $5 to a dime. Right now, most 15-year-olds would have the hardest time trying to do pickup sticks. But that skill set is invaluable. It just, that's what I tell you. Go to work and put it in your pocket. What I did was I went to college. I went to University of District of Columbia, and I threw away my own money. I didn't waste my parents' money. I threw away my own money. But what I did was I went to work after that because mom said that if you were going to be in the house, you were either going to be in school or work. So I went to work, and every job I got, they paid me to learn something. And on all of those jobs, I can tell you something that I learned that I still have with me and utilize today. And most of those jobs were either in retail or older on in fast food.
They paid me to learn
They
something.
paid me to learn something.
I love that. I love that. Because they became your first investors in a way. I love that. I saw another question. Yes. All right. So for the recording purposes, is sweet potato a family business? Is this something that you would want to see outlive you, to be passed down or to be bought by something else, and why?
Well, it's not a family business.
We're the family.
Yeah. You know, Vivian's fired her sister.
Twice.
I fired my
Oh, yeah, 3
niece
times.
and nephew. No, it's not a family business. And we've been talking about that. Is it something that we can pass on to someone? I can't foresee that. It would be nice if um, it lived on in a useful manner, not just for the sake of being there, but being of service and quality. I'm afraid to become, well, they used to be good, that place, and we say that a lot. So if it outlives its usefulness, then there's no real reason for it to be there. It's our job to try to keep it current. And I mean, you can't jump on trends every time, stick a taco on it or egg roll or something. That's not what we do, but you have to be current or be left behind, I guess. So I'm not sure. That's a good question, though.
It is. So um, to go back to the beginning of the seed that was planted, what happened for us is we had a vision. We talked about And we wrote a business plan of what sweet potatoes would be, how it would look, and what the food was, and all of that stuff. And then we found this space that wasn't supposed to be, and it became the space that we inhabited. And once we inhabited that space, once we took that space and it got created into sweet potatoes, it took on its own self. So we became stewards of this thing called sweet potatoes. And we moved from one place into another place. We were in our first location for 14 years, and then we moved one block down the street into another location. And we knew before we moved that we couldn't just pick up and go to the other side of town. We had outgrown our space. Everything was going to just kind of coming in on us. But we knew that the only way we could do it is stay in our neighborhood. That building became available. We rehabbed it. We put sweet potatoes in it. And that thing, that energy, that synergy of sweet potatoes moved. I mean, we packed up the chairs, but something else came with us. And so we are legally the owners of sweet potatoes, but what we really are the stewards of sweet potatoes. It is an entity in itself, and we've been privileged to be its guardian.
Vivian, you said something in that moment, or Stephanie, you may have said it as well earlier about it was you, that you want sweet potatoes to still be of service and of quality and of use. And I want to talk a little bit more about the service side, because a lot of times when people think about restaurants, they only think of service from just customer service. But what I'm sensing is something much deeper than that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
It's what we do. People come and we get to feed people. People go out, you go out to restaurants all the time. You go out because it is a celebratory. You go out because you just didn't feel like cooking, whatever. But beyond that, people come out to socialize. People come out to be fed in different ways. And when you come to sweet potatoes, it has often been the case, time and time and time again, that people come for the comfort that is that space. Our staff, though the face of the staff has changed, the compassion and the friendliness of the staff has remained the same. And so when people come in and they've had a hard day, someone's going to say, "Are you okay? What's going on?" And you'll get a hug. You'll get a hug from we had a host that would just hug everybody. You'll get a hug from the bartender. You'll get a hug from one of the servers. You'll get, "No, I'm going to sit you at this table because you shouldn't walk any further. That table, that section is closed, but I'm going to take care of you right here." You get a care that can't be trained. It can't be taught. It can be encouraged. And so that space that is sweet potatoes, that's what happens there. So our job is to feed people in so many different ways, but it's so much more than just the sustenance of a plate of potatoes and fried chicken or whatever. It's the spirit.
I have a follow-up question, but I want to make sure that all of you gets a question. Jury? Okay. All right. So my follow-up question is that since it can't be trained, it can only be encouraged, how do you look for that in your staff?
I listen. I listen. Stephanie is she's a very quiet person, especially in the workspace, until things go wrong. But we listen, we pay attention, and we can't feed It's kind of like being on an airplane. You got to put on your mask before you can put on someone else's. They can't feed other people unless they're fed. And so we try and be, well, we wind up being a lot of things to our staff. Kitchen as well as front of the house. Minister, doctor, coach, encourager, parent, tough love. It could go on and on. So, yeah, that's how we do it.
Thank you. And the final question, Jerisha.
My question is about how frequent is
Mm.
what encouraged y'all with what was the inspiration for carry out like
Eastern Market.
Eastern Market.
Eastern Market. So before the fire, and it was a fire some years ago, but back in the day, you go back almost 40 years, we would go to Eastern Market and back by past the poultry people and way back in the corner, there was this one place and it was always a line. And we was like, what's that line for? So one weekend we stayed in the line to see what it was. And it was a fried chicken sandwich. Fried chicken breast was a good bun, but it had mambo sauce. It was the best sandwich until she came up with the better one. But it was the best sandwich. And it was like, oh my God. And so that was a taste and a flavor and an experience that was 20 years in the making before we ever came to sweet potatoes. But we remember, like, there's a few things on the menu that were, especially on our original menu, that were from a memory and a taste from Stephanie's childhood. Her grandmother never learned to read or write, but she was the best cook. And so Stephanie was recreating some of the foods that she remembered. And her grandmother was still around, so her grandmother would go, did I make this? And that was the highest compliment. Or in the other word was Stephanie did a shortcut on the potato salad. And she didn't have any problems with the way the potato salad tasted. But she said, baby, that's good, but you need to peel those potatoes. Because she was a red bliss potatoes and she left the skin on. Her grandmother was having none of that. But it was that memory and taste. That's the mambo.
So now that's what I'm gonna get.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to say thank you so much.
We got.
I'm so proud of you. Oh, I am from sister, but I just she's is good at what she does. Always busy. Inspired. I'm a I said, I said, when she said she had 7, 8, but I'm so proud. I can't tell you for
Well, thank you for being here. We have a DC reunion. We have a DC reunion. I love to see it. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here. And most importantly, thank you all for your time, for your efforts, for everything that you've given the city of Winston-Salem, and you've given us a little taste of it here today. So it's been my honor. Thank you both so much.
Ariel, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank these living legends for being here with us. Opportunity to connect and engage with you, dream, and thank you for honor of our in honor of Dr. King's legacy. And I'm here in Winston. I'm a transplant from Winston. Our journey has been back numerous times since. So thank you for what you do. I want to thank you all for being with us tonight. Thank you for living legends. Please be cognizant of Monday. Find somewhere to go, find somewhere to advocate, find somewhere to serve.